is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time I'm going to be changing things up just a tiny bit for this episode. So essentially what I have been doing in the past is giving kind of my character analysis as I go along with giving the recap of the episode. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to do the recap, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on each individual scene that I recap like usual. However, when it comes to character analysis, I think I'm going to save that until the very end of each video. Basically, I've taken notes of all the characters that I wanted to talk about in this episode, and I think I'm going to talk about them one at a time at the very end of the recap portion of this episode review, and I think that might be how I do it for the rest of my reviews going forward. I'm not sure yet. I'm definitely going to be trying it out with this one to see how it all goes, but yeah, with that all being said, let's get right into this review. As this episode opens, we see that thankfully Toma is totally fine after what happened in the previous episode. He's still a little bit shooken up, but for the most part, the corruption that was going on in his mind is all gone, and according to him, he's lost his memory from the moment he first started laying his eyes on the words that were on the book itself. Yuri and Tetsudo investigate the corrupted dragon book and notice that it seems to have absolutely no effect on the two of them. Toma tells Tetsudo that he was able to retrieve the book from Storios, and Tetsudo tells Toma that that should theoretically be impossible. The only one who has access to this book is the Master of Logos himself. One thing right off the bat that I was kind of disappointed to see in this episode is that we still don't have a reveal of what actually went down between Storios and Master Logos. However, we do get a scene between Master Logos and Rika, as Rika suggests that they should go after Toma in order to retrieve the corrupted dragon book from him. But sort of like what was hinted at in the previous episode, Master Logos seems to not have any desire to get it back from Toma. He instead tells Rika not to worry about it and just let him hold on to it for the time being. Now immediately here, this should possibly bring red flags in that maybe the Master Logos is the one who's been corrupting the Sword of Logos this whole time. And it also does kind of confirm that whatever, is going on with him, it's clearly not involved with Rika, possibly making Rika seem like she's innocent, right? Well, not quite. We'll definitely get right back into this later on. She ignores these orders and tells all the other riders to retrieve the book no matter the cost, even if it means killing Toma in the process. For some reason, the writers are really shocked by this, as they act as if this is the first time she's given them orders that are anything like this. This is probably my biggest complaint about the episode, is that Ogami leaves this meeting out of frustration because he doesn't really believe her. He feels like the Master Logos would never actually give any orders like this, and he doesn't like the idea that she's telling them that it's okay to kill Toma. Except this isn't the first time that she's brought this up. I swear, like every time they've had a meeting together, she's always said we must retrieve Toma's sword, even if it means killing him. Like, this is not the first time she's brought up the idea of killing Toma to the other Kamen Riders, and yet for some reason, each time she brings it up, they act like this is the first time they're hearing it from her. And as much as I do get why they needed it to happen with Ogami specifically for his character in this episode, it just really feels out of place every time it happens. Like, yes, we know that she wants you guys to kill Toma. Stop pretending like this is some big reveal or it's like a huge surprise that you didn't see coming. You guys saw it coming because she's brought it up to you 5 other times. At least, I don't know, probably even more than 5 times now that I'm thinking about it. Luckily though, this really bad scene is followed by a really good scene between Ogami and his son. Ogami kind of expresses his frustration in the idea that he just doesn't know who to trust, and that's when his son just kind of says he loves Toma because Toma never lies and Toma always tells the truth. This was a really good callback to one of the older episodes of Kamen Rider when Ogami was in a lot of trouble and Toma promised Sora that he would protect his dad no matter what. A really good callback there, and I actually really enjoyed that. Ogami then realizes that maybe Toma is the one that he should be following this whole time. However, there is one more thing he needs to find out before he makes his decision. Ogami challenges Toma to one final battle in hopes of knowing whether or not following Toma can guarantee the safety of his son. Toma agrees to duel Ogami, and this time Toma holds absolutely nothing back, causing this duel to end in a draw. Ogami finally makes his decision to join Toma in hopes of training him, because if Toma's already being able to show his abilities as he is right now, he feels that under his training, Toma's abilities will only get better and better. Before officially leaving the Sword of Logos though, Ogami confronts Ren and Rintaro in hopes that the two of them will join him. Rintaro continues to be as stubborn as ever, in fact probably more stubborn now than we've seen him in the past. Ren is actually weirdly more hesitant. Weirdly enough, he's the one actually trying to decide whether or not sticking with the Sword of Logos is something that Kento would have done. Although to that I'd say that I believe Kento would have joined Toma from the very beginning, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I also would have said the same thing about Rintaro at the very beginning of Toma leaving the Sword of Logos, but clearly he's stuck with the Sword of Logos to this point, so I guess I'm wrong about Rintaro, clearly. We then cut to Legail, who feels very humiliated after his previous defeat. Because of this, he goes into the city and starts attacking a tower in hopes of drawing out Toma for one final battle between the two of them. Toma and Yuri arrive and the two of them battle Legail. During the fight, however, the corrupted dragon power-up disappears from the North Pole base and finds its way to Toma, where it once again corrupts him. Toma's rampage this time is not only going after the villains, but he also starts to target the Kamen Riders as well. This rampage almost leads to the death of Mei when suddenly at the very last minute he is stopped by Kamen Rider Caliber, who kind of appears out of nowhere through a portal, or at least someone in a Kamen Rider Caliber outfit. So before I wrap up this reviews, I'm going to get my thoughts on a few of the characters in this episode. So starting with Ogami. Ogami finally, like I predicted, was the next person to join Toma. I did think that the thing that eventually made him join Toma was kind of ridiculous, only because it's literally just the same thing we've been seeing in the previous episodes, but I guess you could just say that maybe it's just happened so many times through so many different meetings that this was just the one that really broke him. I did love how his son was the one to finally officially convince him, especially with that really good callback to an older episode, the idea of his son being the one to remind him that Toma never lies, essentially. Rintaro and Ren both surprised me, but for very different reasons. I was really shocked that Ren was the one a little bit more hesitant to turn his back on Ogami, especially because beforehand we've seen that Ren is very airheaded and just super close-minded. He didn't seem like the guy who could actually be persuaded to join Toma. In fact, I believe my prediction a couple episodes ago was that eventually all of the writers would eventually join Toma and Ren would be the one exception. So it really surprises me that they seem to be going in the opposite direction. Rather than that, they have Rintaro as the one who may not be joining Toma in the end. Rintaro seems to be too stubborn to want to leave his family. And as much as I want to complain about this, I can't help but admit that this does kind of make sense to an extent. I mean, there are tons of people out there where it's unfortunate, but when you've clung to a group, or in this case, you know, something that he considers to be his family for so long, it feels like the more evidence that you see in front of you, the more you choose to ignore and the more stubborn you become about wanting to prove the other people around you wrong. So it definitely makes sense. It's just something where it's almost disheartening to see. It's something where I do hope he eventually does come around, but at the same time, the Sword of Logos have essentially brainwashed Rintaro at this point. The Sword of Logos in a lot of ways kind of works like a cult. You know, they raised Rintaro since he was an orphan and kind of brainwashed them into thinking that this was the only thing he was going to have that would be like the closest thing to a family to him. Rika and Master Logos are the two, you know, main suspects for who might be the actual traitor within the Sword of Logos. My theory still goes to Rika because she seems to be working on her own agenda and seems to be constantly ignoring Master Logos. Master Logo seems to have an agenda, but it does seem to be for the greater good, possibly. Now, it is possible that both of them have their own agenda that are both equally bad. And I mean, the fact that Master Logos essentially let Storio steal the corrupted dragon in hopes that Toma would get it, and even knowing what it's doing to Toma, you know, there's got to be some kind of weird, corrupted reasoning behind that we're not seeing yet. However, with Rika, I can't really say that I trust her any more than Master Logos. I mean, she's the one trying to constantly turn the team against Toma, and not to mention she's, as we see in this episode, stealing other Wonder Ride books for reasons we still don't know. And plus we get that final scene between her and Rintaro where she just reassures him that, you know, we're the only family you have. You're the only one who's loyal to us, and it's going to stay that way. So it's one of those things where I personally am at this point thinking that there might be two traders within the Sword of Logos, but neither of them working together. I feel like both Master Logos and Rika have their own personal agenda separate from the rest of the Sword of Logos. On top of that, also separate from the main villains that we even see in the show. At this point, it almost feels like the main villains are kind of just there for padding out the plot and nothing else really, because at this point it feels like the real mystery is just within the Sword of Logos itself, and the villains themselves just kind of seem pointless at this point. But you know what, they're still entertaining, so I can't complain. Overall guys, this was an alright episode. There was the one scene that felt very repetitive, and in a lot of ways it really just kind of felt like they were repeating themselves over and over. A few things that did happen that I was happy to see were things that I wish kind of happened earlier, such as Ogami finally leaving the Sword of Logos and joining Toma. And I am also really surprised that we didn't really get to see what happened between Master Logos and Storio, so I really do hope this isn't something that just kind of goes ignored throughout the rest of the series. I really hope we get like an explanation for it later on, but overall it was an alright episode. But guys, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below if you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and we also have a Patreon now if you guys are interested in joining our Patreon. But guys, at the end of the day, just remember to keep it A+.